Have you ever thought about the rationale behind government subsidies? They're meant to help us save money, so that's a plus. But you should know that these subsidies, while they may seem like a good idea at first, can wind up costing a lot of money and generating other issues. Because of these subsidies, the economy may be thrown into chaos, pollution levels could rise, the wealthiest could benefit at the expense of the poor, and so on. In today's video, we will talk about how it can make our world more sustainable and fair, and even help reduce concerns about energy security related to unpredictable fossil fuel supplies. So stay tuned and join me on this journey of discovery. Let's get started, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Why do we care about fossil fuel subsidies? Subsidies, which are like financial help from the government, are meant to make things cheaper for us, but they actually have some big problems. They cost a lot of money, which means either higher taxes, more borrowing, or less spending on other important stuff. They also make the economy not work so well because they make people use resources in a not-so-smart way, which slows down our country's growth. Another downside is that subsidies can encourage pollution, which is bad for our planet and can even make people sick from dirty air. Plus, the people who benefit the most from subsidies aren't always the ones who need them the most. So it would be a good idea to get rid of some of these subsidies and use that money for things that really help people who need it, improve our tax system, and invest in things that make our country better. And a nice bonus is that it would also make us less worried about running out of fossil fuels. Please like and share the video if you enjoy it. Subscribe for more exciting videos like this in the future. Let's move back to the topic. Measuring fossil fuel subsidies. Subsidies are like discounts that the government gives for things like energy. There are two main types: explicit and implicit subsidies. Explicit subsidies are when the price you pay for something, like electricity, is lower than what it costs to make and get it to you. For things that can't be easily traded with other countries, like electricity, the cost includes how they're produced and delivered to your home. But for things like oil that can be sold abroad, the cost also includes what the country could have earned by selling it instead. Implicit subsidies, on the other hand, happen when the price you pay for something doesn't include all the extra costs it creates. These extra costs can be things like pollution, which contributes to climate change and makes people sick, and problems like traffic jams and accidents caused by using road fuels. So, to get energy prices right, we need to make sure they include these extra costs and add regular taxes when you use these fuels. In a simple example, imagine you pay 30 cents for a liter of gasoline, but it actually costs 50 cents to produce and distribute. On top of that, there are extra costs like pollution, totaling 60 cents per liter. If there's a tax of 14% on gasoline, you're also paying an extra 15 cents. So the explicit subsidy is 20 cents, and the implicit subsidy is 75 cents. If a whole country uses 100 million liters of gasoline, the total subsidy would be around $475 million. In 2021 to 22, most countries didn't include these environmental costs in their energy prices, especially for coal, diesel, and gasoline. Coal had the biggest extra costs because it's a major polluter, while road fuels like diesel and gasoline caused traffic problems. Natural gas was a bit better, but it still didn't have enough taxes to cover its environmental impact. Economic effects of fossil fuel subsidies. Energy is crucial for a country's development and improving people's lives. In many parts of Asia, they use subsidies to make fossil fuels like oil, gas, and coal, as well as electricity, cheaper. Surprisingly, in 2012, 10 Asian countries were among the top 25 worldwide that provided these subsidies, accounting for about a third of the world's total subsidies for these fuels. This amounted to a significant sum, roughly 2.5% of these countries' total income. However, there's a downside to these subsidies. When a country spends so much on discounts for energy, it leaves less money for vital areas like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Despite the intention to help people and boost energy production, it often results in excessive consumption, market distortions, faster depletion of resources, and worsened climate change due to the increased use of polluting fuels. It also hampers the competitiveness of cleaner energy sources. Fossil fuel subsidies disrupt the energy market, making it difficult for clean energy to thrive. This can lead to job losses in the clean energy sector and higher energy costs for consumers. Furthermore, These subsidies affect market prices, reducing economic efficiency and encouraging overconsumption of fossil fuels. This overuse can harm the environment and public health, while negatively impacting government finances and revenue. In 2021, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, found that in South Asia, these subsidies cost governments a staggering $100 billion annually, resulting in increased air pollution and premature deaths. Back in 2009, major groups of countries like the Group of 20 and the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation agreed to gradually phase out these subsidies, although progress has been slow and not universally adopted. Take China, for instance, the largest consumer of coal, using over half of the world's coal supply. India follows, accounting for about 13.6%, and the US at 8.9%. The burning of coal, whether for electricity generation or industries like steel and cement, is the single largest source of carbon dioxide emissions, contributing significantly to climate change. To illustrate the impact further, consider India's case, where fossil fuel subsidies amount to approximately 2.7% of their annual income. This substantial amount could be redirected to areas like education, healthcare, or infrastructure development for the benefit of the population. The encouraging news is that the recent drop in oil prices presents an opportunity to eliminate these harmful subsidies. Done correctly, this reform may lead to slightly higher energy prices, but it can promote cleaner and more efficient energy use while compensating for the initial price increase by directing the saved subsidy money towards helping disadvantaged households and bolstering government finances. So, there's no reason to fear these necessary changes. Current scenario of South Asian region. Countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan are really hooked on fossil fuels, which isn't great for their economies or the environment. It's surprising because they haven't embraced renewable energy, instead relying on expensive imported fuels. Their power sectors are struggling with too much capacity and high costs. In India, they're even planning to dig up more coal, which is bad for the environment. Nepal and Sri Lanka are also getting more dependent on fossil fuels lately, and that's not good for their economies either. Environmentalists are worried because these countries don't seem to be thinking about the consequences of their choices. For example, Pakistan spends a lot of its money on importing petroleum, and Nepal switched from using cheaper biomass to pricier petroleum products. Sri Lanka plans to invest billions in fossil fuels by 2030, which is concerning. Now, in countries like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, they've been giving subsidies to fossil fuels for ages. Even though they know it's not great in the long run, there are some reasons they keep doing it. One big reason is politics. Politicians like to keep people happy by making fuel cheaper. They're afraid that if they raise prices, they'll lose votes. Another reason is that changing things is tough. Getting rid of these subsidies is complicated and can mess with the economy. So politicians often avoid it, even if it's the right thing to do. But more and more people agree that these subsidies are a bad idea. They harm the environment, waste taxpayer money, and mess up the energy market. To fix this, these countries should switch to cleaner energy, use energy smarter, and stop giving subsidies to fossil fuels. They should also put a price on carbon pollution and invest in renewable energy. Interestingly, despite being home to a quarter of the world's people, South Asian countries have been slow to develop renewable energy. Meanwhile, China, Japan, and South Korea are still heavily investing in fossil fuels in the region. The link between fossil fuels and climate change. When we burn fossil fuels like coal and oil, they release a lot of carbon dioxide, CO2, into the air, acting like a heat-trapping blanket. This blanket is causing our planet to heat up, and we've already seen the average global temperature rise by 1 degree Celsius. If we let the temperature keep rising, especially beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, it will bring a host of problems, like rising sea levels, unpredictable weather, the extinction of many plants and animals, food shortages, more illnesses, and making life harder for people worldwide. The IPCC, a group of experts who study climate change, points the finger at things we burn, like coal, oil, and gas, as the primary reason for our planet heating up. Shockingly, in 2018, A whopping 89% of the CO2 that entered the atmosphere came from burning these fossil fuels and from industrial activities. Now, coal is the biggest troublemaker in this group. It's the dirtiest fossil fuel and is responsible for over a quarter of the 1-degree temperature increase we've seen so far. So it's the main driver behind our warming world. Oil is another culprit, releasing a massive amount of carbon, about 1/3 of all global emissions. Recently, we've also witnessed devastating oil spills that have harmed our oceans and marine life. The IPCC is raising a red flag, warning us that to keep global warming in check and stay within the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit compared to pre-industrial times, we must cut our carbon emissions from fossil fuels in half within the next 11 years. In 2015, leaders from across the globe made a promise in Paris to reduce their carbon emissions. However, there's a snag. A recent report from the UN Environment Program reveals that we're on track to produce more than double the amount of coal, oil, and gas by 2030 than we should if we want to stick to that 1.5-degree goal. This means we need to step up our efforts and take more significant actions to protect our planet. People often view natural gas as a cleaner option, but it's still a fossil fuel and contributes substantially to the world's carbon emissions, about 1/5 of them. So while it's somewhat better than coal and oil, it's not an ideal solution for the environment. Reform benefits. Fossil fuel subsidies in several countries like India, Bangladesh, and Japan are a significant concern. These subsidies, which amounted to billions of dollars in 2021, are like an addictive drug for governments. They provide an easy way to lower the cost of living for both citizens and businesses. However, these subsidies come with a range of negative consequences, including economic imbalances, environmental harm, and fiscal challenges. Once a government introduces fossil fuel subsidies, it can be challenging to eliminate them. Opposition from the public and politicians often makes it difficult to make subsidy cuts. Moreover, reducing these subsidies can have short-term negative effects on the economy, such as job losses and price increases. However, there are numerous advantages to reducing fossil fuel subsidies. It can lead to a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, improved air quality, and an increase in government revenue. Additionally, it can stimulate the development of energy-efficient technologies and renewable energy sources. Investing in public transportation infrastructure is one effective way to reduce the reliance on cars and, consequently, the need for fossil fuel subsidies. By improving public transit options, fuel consumption can be reduced, leading to lower air pollution and less traffic congestion. Governments can also generate revenue through public transport by charging fares for train and bus services, which can help offset the costs associated with reducing fossil fuel subsidies. In the end, we can't ignore the fact that fossil fuel subsidies are causing big problems for both our economy and the environment. Yes, getting rid of them is a bit like kicking a bad habit, and it won't be easy. Short-term pain might sting, but the long-term gains are worth it. Thank you for watching.